What's going on, Packers fans? Aaron Nagler here. Justis is joining us to talk about the 53-man roster. And Justis, it's the initial 53-man roster, if you please. How are you doing today? Did you have a good preseason? How's your life?
I feel like I didn't really learn that much from the last two games. I'm going to be honest. Feels like the big reveal was that week one preseason and honestly family night. I'm sure the boys put a lot of work in and burned a lot of calories and all that. But as far as personnel goes, I think, family night, week one preseason were the big reveals. I don't think we learned too much from the last two games.
Well, especially when you had so many frontline guys hurt and on the sideline and in street clothes, right? Especially that second game. 19 guys sat down for that final preseason game. I do think we got a glimpse at a few different guys making a push, right? Especially on the back end of the roster. But today I just want to go through the position groups, and we're going to try to piece together initial 53-man roster. Clearly, I do think there are going to be some kind of maneuvers / mechanisms as far as guys being put on IR. There's the new rule where two of them can be designated to return prior to the 53 being set. Like that.
Prior is the key,
the big
right?
Key,
because
if
people have followed this before, right, the Packers have done some of this
tomfoolery,
better term, goofy, exactly. Goofy moves where they'll do things like cut Matt Orzech, right, and you just don't have a long snapper on the team
for a couple days, right?
For the first day, and then you got to put a guy on injured reserve. Now you open up a roster spot, go back inside Matt Orzech. The Packers can't put two guys on IR. I think there's really only like three guys who are really potential candidates to even go on IR at this point who would make the 53-man roster. But you could see if they want to put all three, and I would just say the names on the front end: Marshawn Lloyd, Barron Sorrell, and then Zane Anderson, right?
Yep.
If they want to put two of those guys on IR designated to return before cutdowns, they can do that, and then they can hold on to the third one for an extra day,
and then put him on IR.
Hit the waiver wire, add a guy, and put him on IR. So that's one way to do it.
There's a lot of balls in the air over the next kind of 48 hours. And to your point, they are always pretty imaginative and/or I'm not going to say outside the box because I think there are plenty of other teams that do this type of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But they certainly maximize the flexibility that the rules give them each and every cut down, right?
Hey man, if they're going to let you control, with the three guys that we have on the pup list, man. Right? If they're going to let you control 70 contracts and Travis Glover, who's on IR, right?
IR already. Yep.
If they're going to let you control 60 contracts instead of 53.
Absolutely.
It doesn't take a math whiz to figure that one out.
Take advantage. But we'll start, with probably the easiest call of all the position groups at quarterback. Clearly, I think this is breaking news. Jordan Love has made the team, and Malik Willis will be your backup, and those will be the only two quarterbacks on the roster. I do know there's a lot of conversation around which, if either of the kind of backups will make it onto the practice squad. I got to admit, I won't be surprised if they kind of do what they did last year and just cut bait with both and maybe don't even bring either one back on the practice squad. I'm not saying that that's the most likely scenario. I'm just saying it wouldn't surprise me, Justis.
I'm with you. I don't want to burn too much time on the quarterback stuff.
Yeah, I hear you. Right. No, I'm with you. It's just I wanted to see a lot more from Air Canada than I think we got over the course of his camp and preseason work.
All right. I tried telling people this. Like, it's a different game, man. And you could see it when the internal.
Yep.
He's got the arm talent, but the internal, that clock, like, defensive linemen aren't playing a yard off.
Right. And he's just he's not a major athlete. So as far as getting out of trouble and escaping stuff, I mean, he did have two really great kind of plays where he, shoveled the ball to the running back, etc. But you ain't living on that in the NFL. That has to be, all of that has to be a lot better. But we'll see. Maybe he does. Maybe they like what they have there as far as a potential to develop him somehow. But yeah, two quarterbacks. And then at running back, you mentioned Marshawn Lloyd. I think this is cut and dry. I won't. I'll be very surprised if he's not put on injured reserve. Meaning they could bring him back later on. But I think it's Josh Jacobs, Emmanuel Wilson, and Chris Brooks. I think the other guys have done some really nice stuff, but I don't see any one of those guys, whether it's, you can talk about Amar Johnson, you can talk about Banaconda, you can talk about any of the guys who got a lot of work in the preseason. I didn't see anybody leapfrogging anybody on the depth chart.
I'm with you, and I don't think they need to keep 4.
I don't either.
The Abanaconda, plus is that he can do kick returns and stuff. I don't think that that's really an open competition, especially like when Savion Williams comes back. Like if there's any place that he could help on special teams, it's probably as a kick returner. Yep. If you don't want to go down the Keyshawn Nixon route, if you don't want to keep Mecole Hardman, right, stuff like that. So I just don't really see a great path for these other guys as long as you have Josh Jacobs, Chris Brooks, and then insert another running back you actually want to give carries to, which when Lloyd is banged up, that's Emmanuel Wilson. I think there was a real debate at this position until Lloyd went down with the injury, but now I really do. I think it's pretty cut and dry.
Pretty cut and dry. Very much agreed. And then you get to receiver, where I think things do get interesting, and I'm interested in your take here because I talked about this in my post-game chat. Man, I'm going to be surprised at this point if Mecole Hardman's on the team. I really am. I do think there's a very good chance that they cut him and try to bring him back. And I don't know that, he won't possibly get opportunities elsewhere if he does get cut. But I just think I can't imagine them. And I think we've talked about this. Like, once he's on that roster week 1, his entire salary is guaranteed. And I just think if he had shown them more as a returner in particular, that makes the case for keeping 6, right? Or 7. All right. Right now I've got Dobbs, Reed, Wicks, Golden, Savion Williams, and Malik Heath. Mecole is such a question mark for me. I would have thought going into camp, like, absolutely, he's your veteran returner. He's
for sure
100% going to make this team. But man, I don't know that he gave you anything that you can't get elsewhere on the roster.
Yeah, I think it would be a major upset at this point if Mecole made it. We have this tracker going up at APC where we have everyone's like 53. And I think we have 7 people's predictions up right now. Right. No one has Mecole making the roster. Everyone has Heath making the team.
It's tough.
And man. I was the guy who's kind of beating that drum after, I think, week 1 of the preseason.
Yep.
And getting a lot of flack for it. Because people are like, we've seen Malik Heath. We don't want Malik Heath. And then he doesn't.
Well, I do think he really helped himself this past week, both with the practices, the joint practice, and especially that preseason game. I do think, that's very real stuff that got put on tape, maybe to allay some fears personnel-wise. I don't think that would be an easy call to, jettison him, but I also wouldn't be shocked. I don't think there's any doubt that he helped himself here over the course of the last 6-7 days. What do you think about the deep reserve guys? Do you think I think most of them are probably good candidates for the practice squad. Do you like some more than others, or is there a guy you particularly like?
Crap. Here, I'll pull up their names. I know Julian Hicks is the first guy up in the rotation. Cornelius Johnson is interesting. He's like a punt block specialist as a wide receiver, which is usually a role that defensive ends fill. They seem to like him.
I really like him. He's my favorite.
Will Shepard is getting returns. I haven't really seen anything from Isaiah Nayer or Kwan Baker that would make me think that they're prioritizing them. So I would think that it's probably, Hicks, Johnson, Shepard, probably in that order. If they want to keep them on the practice squad, they probably only have room to keep 2 receivers because they only have 17 guys. They usually want to keep, they'll keep 2 corners, 2 wide receivers, 2 offensive linemen, maybe 3, and then just kind of hit 1 across the board from there.
Yeah. Then moving to tight end, I think there's a case to be made here that they keep 4, but again, I will not be surprised. And on mine, I've got 3. I've got Kraft, Musgrave, and Fitzpatrick. And I have Sims on the outside looking in. And I know that probably feels weird because he's been such a stalwart for them the last 2 seasons. But I think Fitzpatrick was better across the board. is versatile enough that whatever you need him to do, as far as whether he's running some of that move tight end stuff that they like, putting him even at fullback at times, I just think you can go light there at tight end and opens up the ability to keep an extra guy at a different position.
So I have Sims making this team. I don't know if it's actually going to be Sims. I wouldn't be surprised if they went waiver wire on, the day after the 53 and end up swapping guys. Because Sims had kind of been transitioned out, for Fitzpatrick, the second half of last season. We have the first team snap counts and all that stuff. At APC, it's pretty clear Fitzpatrick is their tight end 3. I will say, though, what we have done with special teams in the NFL, I don't think has really sunk in with fans yet, in that there's 4 core special teams units, right? The actual field goal team and the field goal block team aren't super relevant from like a personnel perspective. You're not building your roster around that.
Right.
You're building it around kickoffs and punts and the returns off of those.
Yes.
The NFL has juiced kickoffs. So half of those core 4 for the last 2 off seasons. The touchback rate was still around like 50% last year. And now touchbacks come out to the 35. So the NFL is now incentivized. They've made half of special teams a lot more important, right?
Right.
And they've turned them from dead plays into something that you're going to get weekly, right? Yep. Here's the problem. You still only got 48 guys active on game day. You still only have a 53-man roster. They've made no adjustment to the roster. So there's certainly a lot more constraint on the lower end of the roster. You're going to need guys who are going to be able to block on kickoff team. We've completely removed defensive tackle, offensive line from that. Like, you could look back,
right?
Mike Daniels used to play on
was
that team, right? Like
100%. Yep. No
who
doubt.
Was it Dan Conley who got that return against the Packers?
Against the Patriots game. Yeah. Thanks for the reminder.
That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, those guys aren't out there.
So you're going to need those tight end bodies, and Musgrave doesn't contribute there, right? You're going to need those Malik Heaths, right?
Yeah.
So that's been my perspective, is that, whether or not they have 4 on the initial roster, I think they're going to end up with 4.
Go 4 on game day. Right. Well, and just who knows, as far as, to your point, maybe scouring the waiver wire and finding someone, and even adding people to the practice squad who haven't been in camp, but that they feel like could help in this regard, and they can bring them up, a couple times throughout the season.
Well, I think that's what Swinson and Lumpkin are there for. I like those guys are both blocking tight ends.
Right.
So I think they're going to use that. That practice squad is a whole lot less of, we're developing this 22-year-old to become a starter for us, and a whole lot more of, if guys get hurt, we got to call someone up to play special teams.
Man, it's cheap labor. The way they've done that too since the pandemic, really, when they started kind of really massaging how not only just the numbers that you could keep, but also, the ability to call them up a number of times a year. I think it's 3. The third time you have to be signed to the 53-man roster, et cetera. But man, that's cheap labor throughout the season. I hear you on the Sims thing. That could be the tipping point to keep him on the roster. We'll see in a couple days here. And along the offensive line, man, that's a weird year for O-line. I got to tell you, I could make the case for only 8 guys being on the 53, but I think it'll end up 9. I got Zach Tom, Elton Jenkins, Aaron Banks, Rasheed Walker, Jordan Morgan, Sean Ryan, Anthony Belton. I got Kadeem Telfort and Donovan Jennings, although both of those guys can be gone. I wouldn't be surprised.
No Monk?
No, I think Monk goes on IR. I mean, we'll see with this, the hamstring injury that he's dealing with. It's always, I don't ever want to accuse anybody of anything here, Justice, but pretty convenient when your guy who's been stinking it up all camp suddenly comes down with a, quote, hamstring injury. Oh, an injury that no one can really see or quantify in any way, shape, or form from the outside. Oh, well, let's maybe redshirt him or sophomore shirt him or whatever the phrase would be in his second season.
So I will say Monk has definitely played better at center than he has at guard. I think he's just a backup center at the NFL level. Like that's what he's gonna do. I have 8. My last guy was Monk,
Okay.
and then I just have the team looking at the waiver wire, buddy.
Yeah.
Pro
Big
pro
time.
scouting department. You guys have done a good job.
They have.
Now is your time. Find
The
that ninth
challenge is
offensive
on.
lineman. Yes, this is your job until Tuesday.
Oh
Find me
boy.
an offensive lineman.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think you're wrong. I will say I think Jennings really helped himself both yesterday in the final preseason game. I don't think he was world beater, but I think he played way better than he had been in preseason work.
The
And I do,
Colts game was rough.
yeah, very rough. I totally agree. But they clearly like him going back to even this offseason when they were running him with the ones at guard, like
Well,
right out of the gate.
when they signed him, I mean, he was a
Yeah,
pre-draft visit.
there's
They gave him a pretty
exactly.
decent
He was
signing
the
bonus.
big roster bonus. Exactly. So I just think they like him a lot. And I do think, like I said, he really kind of righted the ship against the Seahawks. So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, maybe Monk makes it outright straight up. It's possible. But I won't be surprised. Again, I do think they IR him. But here's the thing. If he wasn't a draft pick, I'd say there's a decent chance he just gets cut outright. But because he is a draft pick, they are more patient usually. So maybe that saves him, so to speak. But man, it's been a rough summer for Monk. Then switching it over to defensive tackle. Very interested to hear your pushback here because I know you've been on I'm watching the tape. Nazir Stackhouse ain't all that. I think Nazir Stackhouse is all that, and I think he is going to make this team. I've got Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks, Colby Wooden, Nazir Stackhouse, and Warren Brinson all making it. That's 6 defensive tackles, which probably feels like one more than usual and or most times. But I do think Stackhouse has done enough to show he can help in certain situational kind of moments.
Yeah.
That's to me what makes it valuable here.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any doubt that it's like, yeah, he can help you as a run stuffer. My only question is like, how often are you going to use that guy? Are you going to use that guy active on game day?
No doubt.
Stuff like that.
I hear you.
Consistently, Colby Wood and Carl Brooks in that order have kind of been their backup defensive tackles. And then they've gotten Warren Brinson in a whole lot earlier than Stackhouse for the most part on the defensive side. Stackhouse, except for when he's running with the threes, has pretty much been inserted as a, run only, like obvious rushing down short yardage type of guy.
Although they did have him in a 2-minute at the end of the first half yesterday, and it was hard to watch. Like I said it during camp, like you just you're not getting anything pass rush wise. That's just not. Yeah, that's not coming.
No, that's not what he's here for. No. I do think if they waive him, I do think he's like a priority guy to bring in practice squad, like just for
definitely.
I mean, these guys are scout team players, right? So you're playing a big defensive tackle. Outside of
helps
Kenny
to have one.
You don't want him running
the
scout team,
right?
Like he's probably a guy that you want around just to iron sharpens iron in those type of situations. I get it. I understand. I just think again these roster constraints that have happened because the NFL's made decisions in boardrooms where they're like, we don't want people getting up to take a piss when kickoffs are happening. We don't want them grabbing a beer. We want people to pay attention to these plays. So we're just going to make kickoff more important without expanding the roster in any sort of way. Really hurts a 6th defensive tackle who doesn't contribute on special teams.
It does.
I just think that's what the case is for me.
It's funny because whenever they're down there, like usually it's in Florida at some resort where they do kind of have these votes, right? The coaches are always involved in the conversation at the beginning, and then they literally send the coaches out of the room to go golfing while the owners actually have the vote. Like if the coaches were actually in the room, I think things might go a little different, but it's just funny how they're summarily dismissed whenever the actual kind of rubber meets the road on these rule changes. Then at linebacker, I will go to defensive end. I don't think this is a big mystery. We've got Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, Enigbare, Brenton Cox Jr., and then Barron Sorrell, who I do think gets put on the 53 and then, probably gets IR'd depending on the severity of his injury, but I think he's made the team.
Yeah, for sure. He's not getting waived. Like that's not happening.
Right.
I have the same, but I have the same situation with Sorrell, and I have Aaron Mosby making the team. He's a four-core guy, plays across the board on special teams. Not super sexy, but
So do you have them keeping 6 outright, like out of the gate, or do they?
six out the gate, and
Got it.
then second day, the day
Right.
after cuts, Sorrell goes on
Sorrell
IR.
goes on IR. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
I feel that.
But
Um,
they like to keep a lot of defensive ends. Like that's kind of one of their things, especially with the rule changes and all that. Like Bisaccia has been very pro defensive end on special teams, so I think that kind of helps them out, especially if you're going to have only 3 tight end bodies,
right.
and depending how many linebackers you got, all those guys, tight end, DN, linebacker, they all kind of same body type, play the same type of positions on
Precisely.
special teams.
Well,
So
it's
you got to
funny
make up
too.
numbers there.
It's funny too that Brian finally goes out his comfort zone in this draft to get Colin Oliver, and then Colin Oliver does absolutely nothing all summer. It's like
That was my thing
that's
with the Sorrell
frustrating,
thing,
man.
where people are like, "Yeah, well, the coaching staff said that hopefully, the knee issue, he'll be ready by week 1." I was like, they said Colin Oliver was going to be back within
He's
the
going to be
first
back
week
in
of
2
training
weeks.
camp.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
like
yeah.
so. I don't know.
Don't
We'll
listen to
see.
what they
I'm
say.
not
Watch what
counting
they
on it.
do. 100%. But speaking of linebackers, I have them keeping 6, and it's a bit of a miracle that given everything that's transpired over the summer, I, I, I have them keeping Isaiah Simmons for the reasons you just talked about. Mostly, obviously, special teams. I've got them, Cooper, Walker, McDuffie, Hopper, Isaiah Simmons, and Christian Welch makes the team. I do think clearly I could be off by 1 here. I think Simmons really kind of hangs in the balance, so to speak. But I'll be surprised if the other 5 aren't locks.
Yeah. I do think that I could see a way where Welch doesn't make the team and Simmons does. If that happens, I'm going to be very,
Me too.
frankly. I think
I'll
Welch
be
actually
upset.
helps him a lot more on special teams too. He actually plays those like linebacker type of roles, right? That we talked about.
Right.
Simmons plays like DB roles
Yep.
on
Exactly.
special teams. He's like the
Yes.
punt gunner and stuff like
Yep.
that. I don't like. I think ultimately, like when guys are healthy, right? Like they're gonna keep like 5, 6 corners. They're gonna keep
Yep.
6 wide receivers, and that's before Christian Watson comes off, right? I think they're gonna keep 5 safeties. Do you really need another body there? Like I
Right.
understand that that's a
As a
plus. He's
flyer, as
getting,
a gunner,
yeah,
like yeah. You've got
like
plenty of those dudes.
that's
Totally agree.
one of my question marks. Is I'm like, okay, this yeah, he has a specific trait that alleviates some stress from smaller players, right? But you're gonna keep so many of those smaller players that like, why do you even like? You need more bodies at this tight end, D end, linebacker spots, not
Yep.
DB. So I do question a little bit, unless they think like Isaiah Simmons is going to be this all pro gunner.
Gunner, right? Hey, I mean, that was Jeff Janis back in the day, right? Come
Yeah,
on now. Made his name as a gunner. And
yeah,
people ran with that a little too far. But yeah, hey, if that's the upside, I totally understand it. And then we get to the secondary, and I say the secondary because the breakdown is kind of funny because I have them quote keeping 5 cornerbacks, but really Javon Bullard as a safety is also kind of in that mix because he
yeah.
plays so much slot, right? But out of the gate at corner, I've got Nixon, Hobbs, Valentine, and Ballantyne, and Bo Melton. And I know that's a bit of an upset because there's no Kalen King there, who I think has played well enough to earn a roster spot. But I think they can live with putting him or getting him onto the practice squad and calling him up a couple times, and then maybe at some point signing him to the 53 during the season. But I think especially the work we've seen Ballantyne do over the last 2 weeks on special teams, I'll be surprised if he's a cut.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I have Ballantyne and King both making it.
So you have them 6 out of the
Interestingly,
gate?
yeah, I have
All
6
right.
out of the gate. Ballantyne is weird because they've moved him into the slot for at least the preseason. I don't know what
Right.
they're doing in practice, but that's not a role that he's ever
Yeah, he's been
really
a
played.
perimeter guy. He and Valentine during
Mhm.
that stretch, right? They were on the outside.
I think they've both done well. They're still giving Ballantyne like a lot of premier special teams roles. I think King is getting better on teams and is pretty clearly improving on defense. I think he had a lot better or at least preseason from what I was able to see than he did last year.
Agreed.
I do think that like one of these guys can get cut down the road. One interesting point is that like Valentine and Welch and Simmons.
Right.
All three of them are
Vested
veterans.
Yeah.
So they're in the same position as Mecole Hardman, where it's, hey, if they make the team in week 1, their contract is fully guaranteed for the entire season, which is not the craziest thing, right?
Yeah.
Like Travis Glover is getting paid out his full contract on the IR this this season and stuff like that. And he's not going to contribute a single game for him, but they didn't, waive him with a injury designation. Right. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I have 6 making it. Hobbs is another guy Haddon is another guy that
he really helped himself yesterday. But look,
I think he had a rough stretch against the Bills too, or against the Colts too,
yeah, so. He did. Although I guess he playing banged up a little bit, but I think he helped himself. I think he's got a return to the practice squad written all over him, as well as Micah Robinson, their 7th round pick, who I thought had a really good summer, but never really translated what he did at Radnički over to kind of at least film that could contend for inclusion on the 53. It just never really kind of popped that way.
He just was never able to really break that depth chart. Like even with the second team unit, when they had all the injuries and, before Valentine
got signed, right?
When Nate Hobbs was hurt, when Haddon was hurt, like he still wasn't even to break that second team defense lineup. So yeah, I think he's behind the 8 ball for sure.
Yeah, very much agreed. I will say if there is one kind of quote surprise coming Tuesday, that would be it for me. Like, although I'm
just
saying it now, so
like he was a draft pick.
Saying he's a draft pick. I mean, what Jonathan Ford? Anybody? You know what I mean? Like we've seen Goody do this on a couple of occasions where everybody thinks, well, he's had a nondescript summer, obvious practice squad candidate, and they make the 53, and it just so happens that they were a 7th round pick. So I'm just saying it is a possibility, right? And then you look at safety. I have them with 5. Again, the Javon Bullard thing is transient, but I got McKinney, Williams, Bullard, Anderson making it, and then who knows as far as maybe, depending on the severity of the injury, he goes on IR, and Ketan Oladapo, who I think Oladapo had a nice summer. No doubt about it.
For sure. And I think he's going to help you a lot more on team. Like he was kind of like a super sub on special teams last year. I think he's just going to be an outright starter on a lot of units this year. I have Zane as an IR guy. I have him and Lloyd, and then, Sorrell doing the whole, he makes it for a day, then goes on and you pick up a waiver wire offensive lineman. I think ideally they want to keep 5 at the position, but if you have the Isaiah Simmons, right? If you have
exactly.
The 6 cornerbacks, then you don't really need to do that. And you can get the extra roster spot, at least momentarily, from Zane Anderson not having to count against you while he's hurt. I've seen some people actually on their 53s have Omar Brown as an IR designated to return guy. Yeah. I don't think you need to do that. I don't think he's coming up to the 53 this year. So why are you using one of those 2 spots? You only get two of those spots
before the 53. Downs. Yes.
And you only get 8 guys total. You get to pull off of IR for the entire season.
Yep.
I don't think you need to use that for Omar, but put him on season-ending IR, pay him out, keep him around the team, have him have a college try at it next offseason, right?
Totally agree.
But I don't think you need him for the regular season.
It's interesting too. I do think some of that is because you get to these practice reports or tweets and people are seeing how active he was and the production, right? The interceptions. He had more interceptions than anybody in camp. But it's like, okay, 3 of those were gifts essentially. And to your point, like he's been working mostly, almost exclusively with the 2s and 3s, mostly the 3s to start. Like I just don't see a world where the Packers are like, oh, we've got to put him on the 53. Like that would be shocking.
And I think it's going to be hard to keep 6 safeties too. And their 5th safety is Oladapo. Like Oladapo is behind Zane Anderson in the pecking order.
Exactly.
Right? So like, are you cutting Oladapo for him? No,
absolutely not.
So exactly. I don't get the Omar Brown IR designated to return thing.
Yeah,
Just shut down a season. I mean, it is what it is. It's an unfortunate injury and all that stuff. I'm sure they would have loved to have him back on the practice squad,
big
but
time. Agreed. And then of course the specialists, McManus, Whelan, and Orzer. We know what's going to happen there. But yeah, it's funny to come to the end of camp and to your point at the start of the stream, man. Like I had so much kind of excitement around so many of the position groups that ended up getting hurt, like whether it was wide receiver or whether it was
yeah.
offensive line. Like those were the positions we came into the camp thinking, oh, we can't wait to see these guys really kind of compete, as it were.
Or
And
defensive end. We just never got to look at Colin
right,
Oliver, right?
right,
Like
yep.
a lot of these
It's just,
funky
and we
situations.
talk about that every offseason. We kind of joke about the fact it's Ted Thompson used to say it all the time, right? A lot of times injuries just sort these things out on their own. And that certainly seems to be the case this season because I think outside of what we're talking about here, the end of every kind of piece of the depth chart, whether it's one position or another, it's like the top of it is pretty lock solid. It's pretty much what you expected coming in. So,
Yeah.
not a ton of surprises in that regard. Justis, really appreciate the time, man. Make sure you're checking out Justis's work over there at Acme Packing Company. There's a link in the description of this video for you to do so. Justis, it's finally here. Next time we speak, there'll be actual football to talk about. Can't wait.
Hope so.
Well, okay. Is that a Kyle Shanahan reference? Like, who knows if we're going to be here today, or
The world could end.
the world could end before the next football game, or is that like, oh, maybe the Packers won't look like a real football team when they play the Detroit Lions? Is that what you're telling me?
Oh no, they need to look like a real football. I've overextended myself on chirping at Lions fans. They need to look like a real football team in that game, please.
Oh, they're not even favored. They're not even favored. Justis at home, season opener, Lambeau Field, and they are underdogs. Think about
Please don't do the wave when the offense is on the field. I'm begging you.
Oh, Godspeed. Justis, thanks so much, man. We'll talk to you soon.